Did you know Elvis Presley once dropped over $140,000 on Cadillacs in one afternoon just to give them away? Imagine getting a phone call telling you the king of rock and roll just bought you a house right next door to Graceland. He didn't just fly private, he bought a whole former airliner and trunk it with things like gold-plated seatbelt buckles and a plush sleeping area. Elvis handed out custom-made, diamond-studded necklaces like party favors to his inner circle. And picture this. A random bank teller mentions she likes his car, and Elvis buys her one on the spot. He even bought his own father a sprawling horse ranch, just because. Get ready. Because the king's generosity wasn't just legendary, it was mind-blowingly extravagant. Here are 6 times Elvis Presley's gift-giving went completely over the top. Number 1, the Great Cadillac Spree of '76, and countless others. Okay, buckle up, because Elvis and Cadillacs are a whole saga. Giving away cars was practically a hobby for him, but one incident stands out as pure, uncut Elvis extravagance. Picture this. It's January 1976. Elvis is in Denver, Colorado for a show. He's feeling good, maybe a little restless. What does a global superstar with mountains of cash do? He decides to go car shopping, but not for himself. Oh no, that would be too normal. Elvis rolls up to Jack Kent Cadillac. Some stories say Comf Lincoln Mercury initially, then Cadillac. The details get fuzzy with legend, but the core craziness remains. He doesn't just browse. He doesn't just pick one. Elvis, surrounded by his usual entourage, the Memphis Mafia, his security, maybe a girlfriend or two, basically points and says, "I'll take that one and that one and that one." Witness accounts vary slightly on the exact number, but the most commonly cited figure is FOURTEEN, Cadillacs. Yes, 1 to 4. In one single shopping trip. Can you even imagine the salesman's face? It probably went from polite interest to disbelief to pure, unadulterated joy. Ka-ching! Who were these lucky recipients? A whole mix. There was Dr. Nick, his personal physician, George Nicopolis, members of his backup singing group, J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet, his road manager, Joe Esposito, other friends and associates who happened to be around. But the most famous recipient from that day, Captain Jerry Kennedy, some sources say Ron Pietrafezzo, of the Denver Police Department. Elvis had befriended some Denver officers who provided security for him, and he decided Captain Kennedy deserved a caddy. Apparently, Elvis liked the color, a special blue, so much he bought several in that shade, the total bill. Somewhere north of $140,000 in 1976 dollars. That's like well over $500,000 today, maybe closer to $700,000 or more, depending on the inflation calculator you use. Elvis reportedly paid for it all right then and there with a personal check. Just scribbled it out, like he was buying groceries. The logistics must have been insane, figuring out titles, registrations, deliveries for 14 different people. And this wasn't even an isolated incident. Giving away Cadillacs was Elvis's thing. There are countless stories. Like the time in Memphis when he saw a bank teller, Mindy Miller, admiring his custom Cadillac outside. He struck up a conversation, found out she liked it, and promptly went back to the dealership that same day and bought her a brand new car. Not a Cadillac that time, maybe a Pontiac Grand Prix or something similar, but still. He just handed her the keys. Her life changed in an afternoon because she happened to compliment the king's car. He bought cars for his maid, his cook, his buddies, sometimes even virtual strangers who showed him kindness. He bought his mother Gladys a pink Cadillac back in the 50s, probably his most famous car gift. It became an icon. He bought cars for Priscilla. He bought cars for Linda Thompson. He bought cars for Ginger Alden. If you were close to Elvis, chances were good you'd end up with a new set of wheels, probably with fins and lots of chrome. The sheer volume, the spontaneity, the massive cost. It was generosity dialed up to 11, pure Elvis style. He saw something someone liked, or felt someone deserved a treat, and boom, instant car. The Denver spree was just the most concentrated example of a lifelong habit of automotive largesse. Number 2, the Lisa Marie jet, flying high in ultimate style. Elvis didn't just travel, he arrived. By the mid-70s, commercial flights were a hassle for someone of his fame level. Security, fans, delays, it just wasn't practical. Plus Elvis liked his comfort and his own space. So, what did he do? He bought his own airliner. Not a little Learjet, though he had smaller jets too, but a full-sized Convair 880 jet, previously owned by Delta Airlines. This wasn't just buying a plane. It was acquiring a piece of aviation history and turning it into a flying Graceland. He purchased the plane in April 1975 for a reported $250,000. But that was just the starting price. The real extravagance came in the refurbishment. Elvis spent somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 completely gutting and customizing the interior to his exact specifications. Remember, this is mid-70s money. We're talking about a total investment easily exceeding $1 million back then, which translates to multiple millions today. He christened it the Lisa Marie, after his beloved daughter, and the inside, oh boy. Forget standard airline seats. Elvis wanted luxury, and he got it. The plane featured a plush living room area. Think comfortable couches and chairs upholstered in rich fabrics. It was designed for relaxing and entertaining while cruising at 30,000 feet. A conference room, complete with a large table and seating, presumably for discussing tour business or playing cards, whatever the king desired. A private bedroom. Elvis needed his rest, especially during demanding tours. The plane included a proper bedroom, not just a fold-out cot. Some reports mention a queen-sized bed. An amazing bathroom. This wasn't your typical cramped airplane lavatory. It featured honest-to-goodness, gold-plated fixtures, sink basin, faucets, the works. Yes, gold-plated, because why not? High-tech for the time. Entertainment. A state-of-the-art audio system. Elvis loved his music naturally, and even a videotape system connected to multiple TVs were installed. Imagine watching movies on your private jet in 1975. Custom details everywhere. Gold-plated seatbelt buckles were just the start. The color schemes, the materials, everything reflected Elvis's personal taste, which tended towards the lavish and comfortable. Think deep colors, soft textures, and plenty of bling. The exterior wasn't ignored either. It was painted in a distinctive white, with a bold red, white, and blue stripe down the fuselage, culminating in his personal TCB logo, taking care of business, with a lightning bolt on the tail. It was instantly recognizable. Owning and operating a jet like the Lisa Marie wasn't cheap. Fuel costs were enormous, plus maintenance, pilots, flight crew, landing fees. It was a constant, massive expense. But for Elvis, it represented freedom, convenience, and the ultimate status symbol. He could fly himself, his family, his band, and his entire entourage anywhere, anytime, in unparalleled comfort and privacy. He used the Lisa Marie extensively for touring in the last couple of years of his life. Imagine the sight of that huge custom jet landing in cities across America, the king emerging ready to rock and roll. It wasn't just a means of transportation. It was a statement. A massive, expensive, flying statement of his unique place in the world. He even bought a second smaller jet, a Lockheed Jetstar, sometimes nicknamed the Hound Dog II, to use for shorter trips or when the Lisa Marie was unavailable. Because one private jet just isn't enough when you're Elvis. The sheer scale and cost of acquiring and customizing the Lisa Marie make it one of the most extravagant gifts he ever gave himself, and by extension, his entourage who got to fly in it. It remains parked at Graceland today, a testament to his larger-than-life persona. Number 3. A house right next door for Linda Thompson. Elvis's romantic relationships were often intense, and his generosity towards his girlfriends reflected that. When he was dating Linda Thompson, former Miss Tennessee, USA, whom he was with for several years in the mid-70s, he didn't just shower her with jewelry or cars, though he certainly did that too. He bought her a whole house. And not just any house, a house located practically next door to Graceland. Think about that for a second. Graceland wasn't just Elvis's home. It was his sanctuary, his fortress, the center of his universe. Buying a property immediately adjacent to it for his girlfriend was a significant gesture. It kept her close, literally within shouting distance, blending her life directly with his daily world at the mansion. The house itself, located on Hermitage Drive right behind Graceland, wasn't a small cottage. It was a substantial, comfortable home. Elvis purchased it in the mid-1970s, specifically for Linda. He didn't just hand her the keys to an empty shell either. Elvis, being Elvis, he reportedly had it furnished and decorated to ensure it was ready for her. Details vary, but it's safe to assume it was done up in a style Linda liked, likely with input from her, and certainly paid for by the king. This gift speaks volumes about the dynamic of their relationship at the time. It provided Linda with her own space, a degree of independence, yet kept her firmly within Elvis's orbit. She could easily walk over to Graceland whenever she wanted, and he could easily visit her. It was a practical solution, perhaps, for managing a relationship under the intense spotlight of his fame, but the sheer extravagance of buying another whole property right next to his already massive estate is undeniable. Imagine the cost, not just the purchase price of the house itself, Real estate right next to Graceland, even then, wouldn't have been cheap. But also the furnishing, decorating, and ongoing upkeep. It was a major financial commitment, treated almost casually. This gift also highlights a pattern with Elvis. He liked having his loved ones close. His parents lived at Graceland with him initially. He housed many members of his Memphis Mafia entourage in trailers or apartments on the Graceland grounds or nearby properties he owned. Providing housing was a way he took care of his people, binding them closer to him. For Linda, this house was more than just shelter. It was a symbol of her place in his life during those years. It was a physical anchor in the whirlwind world of dating Elvis Presley. While their relationship eventually ended, the house remained. It stands as a tangible piece of evidence of a time when Elvis's affection translated into one of the most personal and geographically significant gifts possible, a home right under the eaves of Graceland itself. It wasn't a plane or a fleet of cars, but the intimacy and location made this gift uniquely extravagant in its own way. It was like saying, "You're part of my world, so much so, you get your own piece of property right here beside me." Number 4, TCB and TLC necklaces. Bling for the inner circle. Elvis didn't just like flashy things for himself. He liked to adorn his friends and loved ones too. One of the most iconic examples of this was the creation and distribution of the TCB and TLC necklaces. These weren't just pieces of jewelry. They were badges of honor, symbols of belonging to Elvis's exclusive inner circle. TCB stood for taking care of business, a motto Elvis adopted, reflecting his professional philosophy and perhaps his approach to life. He, along with Priscilla, designed a logo featuring the letters TCB arranged vertically, struck through by a lightning bolt. Why a lightning bolt? Because he wanted it to mean taking care of business in a flash. Quick, decisive, powerful. This became the symbol for the men in his entourage, the Memphis Mafia, his band members, and other close male associates. But Elvis didn't forget the ladies. He created a parallel version, TLC, standing for Tender Loving Care. This necklace featured the letters TLC, also typically arranged vertically, and often accompanied by a lightning bolt, though sometimes designs varied slightly. These were given to the important women in his life: Priscilla, Linda Thompson, Ginger Alden, female friends, family members, and backup singers like Kathy Westmoreland or members of the Sweet Inspirations. Now, here's where the extravagance comes in. These weren't cheap trinkets. Elvis commissioned them from his preferred jeweler, Lowell Hayes, and possibly others over time. The standard design was crafted in 14-karat gold. But that wasn't enough flash for the king. Many, if not most, of these necklaces were encrusted with diamonds. We're talking multiple small diamonds accenting the letters and the lightning bolt. Some versions were reportedly even more lavish, featuring larger stones or more intricate designs. Elvis didn't just order a few. He ordered them in batches. He gave them out freely to those he felt earned a place in his circle. Getting a TCB or TLC necklace was a sign that you were in. It was a tangible symbol of Elvis's trust, friendship, and appreciation. He reportedly loved the act of bestowing them upon people. Imagine being presented with a solid gold diamond-studded necklace directly from the hand of Elvis Presley. The cost must have been astronomical. Gold prices fluctuate and diamond quality varies, but commissioning dozens of custom-made diamond-encrusted gold necklaces throughout the 70s would have amounted to a fortune. Each necklace represented a significant investment. But for Elvis, the monetary value was likely secondary to the symbolic value. It was about loyalty, belonging, and marking his people. He wore a TCB necklace himself, often prominently displayed against his elaborate stage jumpsuits. It became part of his signature look. Members of his entourage wore theirs with pride. It identified them as part of the king's court. There are stories of him giving them away almost impulsively. If he liked someone, if someone did him a good turn, they might just find themselves the recipient of a TCB or TLC necklace. These necklaces weren't just gifts. They were part of the Elvis Presley mythos. They represented the close-knit, sometimes insular, world he built around himself. While a single necklace might not cost as much as a Cadillac or a jet, the sheer number he commissioned and gave away, the quality of the materials, gold and diamonds, and the deep personal symbolism attached to them make the TCB-TLC phenomenon a truly extravagant expression of his unique brand of generosity, both professionally and personally. They were wearable symbols of loyalty, paid for in gold and diamonds by the king himself. Number 5. A whole dang horse ranch for Vernon Presley. Elvis wasn't just generous with his friends and lovers. He showered his family with gifts too, especially his father, Vernon Presley. While Vernon lived at Graceland for many years and managed much of Elvis's personal business affairs, Elvis decided his dad needed something more, a place of his own, tailored to his interests. And Vernon, like Elvis, had a fondness for horses. So, what did Elvis do? In the late 1960s, around 1967, he bought a substantial piece of property in Mississippi, not far from Graceland, just over the state line. This wasn't just a plot of land. It was a 163-acre ranch. He purchased it specifically for Vernon and named it the Circle G Ranch. The G presumably stood for Graceland, linking it back to the main estate. Buying the land was just the start. Elvis poured money into developing it. He wanted it to be a proper working ranch, a place where Vernon could indulge his love for horses and where Elvis himself could escape the pressures of fame. He reportedly built or renovated housing, ensured there was comfortable accommodation on the property, likely for Vernon and any staff needed to maintain the ranch. Added stables and fencing, necessary infrastructure for keeping horses. Elvis stocked the ranch with horses, reportedly buying quite a few for his father and himself to ride. Created recreational areas. It wasn't just about work. The ranch became a getaway for Elvis and his entourage. They'd ride horses, have barbecues, shoot guns, ride, go karts, and generally relax away from the public eye. There are famous photos of Elvis riding his beloved horse, Rising Sun, at the Circle G. Bought equipment. The working ranch needs tractors, tools, and other equipment, all presumably purchased by Elvis. The total cost of buying the land and developing the Circle G Ranch isn't precisely documented in most public sources, but acquiring 163 acres and outfitting it as a functional and recreational horse ranch would have been a massive expense, easily running into hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1960s money that translates to millions in today's terms. This gift was extravagant, not just because of the cost, but because of its scale and purpose. It wasn't just a trinket or a vehicle. It was a sprawling, operational piece of real estate, a personal fiefdom created for his father's enjoyment and his own relaxation. It showed the depth of his desire to provide for his family, giving Vernon not just financial security, but a place and a purpose that aligned with his interests. Elvis even bought several small prefabricated houses and placed them on the ranch property for members of his Memphis Mafia, entourage and their families to live in, rent-free. This further cemented the ranch as an extension of the Graceland world, a satellite community centered around the king. While Elvis eventually sold the ranch in the early 1970s, perhaps as his interests shifted or the upkeep became too much, the period during which he owned and operated it for his father stands as a monumental example of his generosity. Buying someone a fully functional horse ranch is not something most people can even conceive of, let alone do. For Elvis, it was just another way of taking care of business and family in the biggest way possible. Number 6. The impromptu car for the bank teller and other strangers. While the Denver Cadillac spree was epic in scale, perhaps nothing captures the spontaneity and sheer jaw-dropping unexpectedness of Elvis's generosity, quite like the stories of him gifting cars to complete strangers. The most famous of these involves a bank teller in Memphis. The story goes like this. Details sometimes vary, as with many Elvis legends. One day in the mid-1970s, Elvis pulled up to a bank in Memphis in one of his flashy cars, maybe a Cadillac, maybe his Stutz Blackhawk. He had several of those luxurious custom-built cars too. A young female teller, often identified as Mindy Miller, though she later became a friend, brief girlfriend. At this moment she was essentially a stranger working her job. Happened to be outside or saw the car through the window. She commented on the car, saying how beautiful it was, how much she admired it. Standard, polite admiration anyone might offer upon seeing an impressive vehicle, especially one driven by Elvis Presley. Elvis, likely charmed or simply feeling generous, which seemed to be his default state, struck up a brief conversation with her. He asked her if she liked it. She confirmed she did. Most people would say, "Thank you," and drive off. Elvis Presley was not most people. According to the accounts, Elvis didn't just drive off. He either told her to meet him at a dealership later that day, or he went directly to a nearby dealership himself. He walked in, picked out a brand new car, some versions, say a Pontiac Grand Prix, often cited as yellow or gold. Others mentioned different models, but definitely a nice new car, and bought it on the spot. Then he arranged for the car to be delivered to the bank teller. Can you even fathom that? You're working your shift processing checks and deposits, you make an offhand comment about a customer's car, and a few hours later someone delivers a brand new vehicle to you, keys in hand, telling you it's a gift from Elvis Presley. The sheer shock must have been overwhelming. This wasn't about showing off to his inner circle or rewarding loyalty. This was pure, unadulterated, impulsive generosity directed at someone he barely knew, simply because she expressed admiration, and he had the means and the whim to fulfill that implied desire. Instantly, the cost of the car, likely several $1,000s in 70s money, a very significant sum for an average person, was apparently inconsequential to him in that moment. And this wasn't necessarily a one-off. there are other, less documented tales of similar acts. Stories circulate about him tipping service workers with amounts far exceeding their salaries, helping people pay off medical bills, or even buying a house for someone outside his immediate circle who had fallen on hard times. He once famously gave Muhammad Ali a custom-designed robe worth thousands, emblazoned with People's Champion. While Ali was a celebrity, it was still an incredibly generous, unsolicited gift. But the car for the bank teller remains the quintessential example of his random acts of automotive kindness. It highlights the surreal nature of his wealth and his impulsive spirit. He operated on a different plane of existence, where gifting a car was as simple as buying a cup of coffee for someone else. It wasn't calculated. It just happened. This level of spontaneous high-value gift-giving to strangers is perhaps the most extravagant gesture of all, showing a generosity that literally knew no bounds and could strike anyone, anywhere, at any time. Imagine living in a world where complimenting Elvis Presley's car could result in you driving home in a new one.